Hey friends, welcome back to Kiki's Closet. Today's episode is probably the closest thing I'll ever have to an episode about baseball, but that's because we're talking about Damn Yankees, the musical, which just opened at the Arvada Center. So let's batter up and start the show. Start the game. I was gonna try and make a sports reference, but it's clear that I have no idea what I'm talking about, so we're just gonna start the show. Here we go.
Come on and come and play in Kiki's Closet today.
Coming to you from Colorado, please help me welcome my friends, Robert Anthony Jones, Ty Gabriel Jones, and Adrian Robinson. Hey everybody, welcome to Kiki's Closet. Thank you so much for being with me here today. I know you just opened up Damn Yankees at the Arvada Center in Colorado, and I can't wait to talk with you about your show. First question though, what color is your heart today?
Well, I would normally say blue because that's my favorite color, but blue makes it sound like I'm sad and I'm super happy. So mine is the Pride rainbow.
I think my heart is yellow today. It's like a happy color. It's bright.
Green, baby, it's spring. Things are blooming.
I want to know the first time you saw yourself represented on stage. Let's start with you, Ty.
So I have to say that it wasn't necessarily the stage, but it's that awesome movie with Will Smith and Jaden Smith, The Pursuit of Happiness. I saw this little black boy with an afro, and I was like, that's weird, I was like, that could be me.
When I was a kid, I saw a production of The Little Mermaid, and they had a Latina Little Mermaid, and she had brown hair instead of red. She still had like the big bang, and everything else was like Disney standard. But like, I remember my eyes lit up and I was like, Mom, like I need that costume. I'm the Little Mermaid.
Oh my God. I mean, I think that just speaks to how important representation is for like people across the board. I'm really happy that you had that experience so young.
Yeah.
Now, Raj, you've done it all. Broadway, national tours, off-Broadway, Salt Lake City with me. When was the first time you saw a piece of theater and you were like, wow, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
One of my most amazing theatrical experiences, I saw the original Carrie on Broadway, and like unbelievable. And actually, fast forward, when I did Finding Neverland, Sally Ann Triplett came into Finding Neverland, and she was Sue Snell, I think, in the original Carrie musical. And when I met her, she was like, "Oh, it's so wonderful to meet you," and I was like, "Thanks. I loved you in Carrie the musical." And it was such an experience for me. Like I fully turned gay like in Act 2. Like that show was such an incredible experience. And so that was like one of my like life-changing, you see something on stage, I'm like, I have to do this. This has to be something that I would do. But I also want to say one extra thing, if I may. I am a person of size who one of the first times I saw someone represented, and this is actually later in life, was Melissa McCarthy on Gilmore Girls, where no jokes were made about her size. She wasn't the butt of any joke. It was a person being a person, and that's what I try to represent on my side of things, because I'm playing Applegate in this show. The original guy is like this tall, lanky devil, and I just came in and I said, I'm gonna do this my size and my person.
You look so sharp in that suit. You look so amazing. Did you ever think you'd get to play a part like this?
Of course. I mean, I played all the grades, but no. I actually didn't realize, like, it was never on my radar. And then our team that we've assembled for this show is so incredible. I think we'd all agree. Like, everyone makes it so easy just to dive into this.
Now, the two of you, like, did you ever imagine getting to bring Lola and Joe to life? Because it's usually, these are roles usually played by white performers, and I think often it's hard to see ourselves in roles that like we're never represented. So like, I want to know what it's like jumping into these iconic roles.
I mean, I was overjoyed because I was currently in the cast of Beauty and the Beast at the Arvada Center when we were all auditioning for Damn Yankees. And like the whole female dressing room had been called back for Lola. It was white women and me and Ray Lee Case, who is an Asian American woman in our cast. And so I was like, oh man, I am outnumbered by these white blonde women. And so my brain immediately tells me, you're out, you're done. And because it is traditionally played by white ladies with blue eyes. But then I heard a rumor that they were searching for a Latina actress and that was their intention. And so that gave me like a newfound confidence. And I spoke with Lynn and Sylvia, who was the casting director, after, and she was like, oh, you walked out and it was done. And like you had sealed it, it was done. So I'm just thrilled to bring my Latina fire and pride to Lola because she really fits it.
I think it's such a good question because when you do material from the 50s, the odds are, unless you're doing like Shuffle Along or UB, that it's been played by, you know, white folks for a very, very long time. I was so honored and overjoyed to, you know, be offered the role of Joe Hardy, because nobody here really knew who I was, you know, so it was really, really great to get to put that material on its feet and meet the team here. I have done, you know, quite a few shows where I found myself in a role that I wasn't expecting them to consider a black or brown, you know, person for. But I think if you can imagine yourself in that role and it's going to tell you know, a truth or nuance the story in a way that, you know, still serves progress and the story and I mean, why not?
Absolutely. And this next question, I'm kind of bummed that I still have to ask this question because this is my 49th episode of the show, and these are questions that like sparked the reason for launching Kiki's Closet, and it's about why we should have a diverse company of performers and why that helps better tell any story. And I still constantly see, and I went with Raj a lot about this, but like seeing casting announcements for a lot of regional theater. I think Broadway's gotten better, but a lot of regional theater where casts are almost entirely white still. Even shows that are casting out of New York, I really still don't understand. So it feels like the Arvada Center has done the work, and not all theaters have done the work. So I guess what would you say to creatives that are maybe still on the fence, which seems so insane to ask, but it's still a huge issue for actors of color?
I think it's super important that casts and media, you know, reflect the world that we live in, and the world that we live in is colorful. You know, it's different maybe for isolated regional theaters where their community may be, you know, literally everybody in your area represents your personal demographic. And for those casting directors and those creatives who are like, well, what am I supposed to do? You know, I mean, if you're flying white people in, you can fly people in of any other color, background, ethnicity, shape, color, size. So when it comes down to it, I think that the theaters in those suburban rural areas where there's more livestock than people, and maybe all the people look like, you know, the people who are, you know, in question, do works and plays that tell stories that maybe your typical patron isn't jumping to see. Take that risk, you know, that risk your season. Do a Dominique Morisseau play. Gulf Shore Playhouse in Naples, where I just did Camelot. While we were putting that show on its feet, they were producing Mud Row by Dominique Morisseau, and Naples, Florida, like many cities in Florida, is like a retirement town, you know, predominantly like older white people. And a Dominique Morisseau play stands out. So even if your house is only half full, half the run for seeing that show, it's making such an impact. You're networking with, you know, artists from different backgrounds, from in town or out of town, that maybe otherwise you never would have met. I think it's really important.
Speaking as a white person, it is far beyond time for the white actors to move over and make some room. That's my opinion. I think it's ridiculous that this has gone on so long where it's a predominantly white industry and world, and it is far past time to take a seat as a white person and let equality come to the forefront. That's the way I feel.
And I don't think that even means like giving up jobs, but I think it means raising your voice and saying, hey, like to the regional theaters that you do have a connection with, hey, like, I really wish that their theater like made a better step forward in including more people of color in your up in this, this cast that you just announced. And that does take, some, I guess, bravery, but we need our allies to step up with us. Otherwise, nothing's ever going to get done.
I actively notice when I'm in a room and I'm like, there are not enough people of color in this room. And that's one thing that we touched upon about Arvada. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to come on and do this. I feel like a major shout out has to be made to Arvada, who is actively trying to hire people of color and actively trying to break the mold that should never have been there in the first place.
When I'm looking at auditions or when I get appointments, the first thing I do, I go on social media and I look up these theaters and look at their production photos, and I'm like, how many? One, two. Okay. Because that often speaks to how you're going to be treated when you get there. And I don't think a lot of our white peers like ever have to necessarily think about like maybe being the only other in the room, but it's not a great feeling. But I'm happy to hear that Arvada has been doing the work, and I of course I can see that represented.
I have to like pat Arvada Center on the back as well, because as a local, I get to see not only the talent pool that we are working with in Colorado, but I get to see the choices that theaters are making, and the choices that theaters are making are not following in the steps of Arvada, like en masse, truly, because a lot of the dinner theaters in particular are so white. Production team and cast, you can really tell the difference. You really can. And you can tell the difference of people who are choosing to go out and audition for these theaters, because some actors of color are like, well, why bother? Why bother auditioning here? I know they're not going to cast me. And all that does is shrink the worldview of the patrons who come to see the art, and just continue this pattern that really should have been broken so many years ago. But Arvada Center, I think, was on the forefront of making an active change in their community.
Well, I'm so happy that you're all getting to work in an environment like that. Raj, you got my last little question is, how do you keep your hand at the level of the eye? Why do you do that?
Your hand at the level of your eyes.
Will you please explain real quick to our friends what your journey with Phantom and what you thought that lyric was?
There's a scene where Raoul and Madame Giry are going to find the Phantom at the end of the show, and she sings, "Keep your hand at the level of your eye." And I thought it was because if they saw him without his mask on, they would like turn to stone or die. And it's actually because the Phantom is known for hanging people. So if you keep your hand at the level of your eye, you can negotiate the noose and get it off of your neck before he tries to kill you.
This story kills me, and when I think of Raj, I often think of him singing that line. So I had to end the episode on that note. But thank you all so much for joining me here today in Kiki's Closet. Damn Yankees runs at the Arvada Center until May 7th. Thank you, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Come on and come and play in Kiki's Closet tonight.